Bruce Bochy's time in Texas is done. But does that mean the Rangers championship window is closing too?
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. On today's show, we're talking about what this Bruce Bochy move means for the franchise as a whole, what it signals to the baseball world, and why it has me very concerned with all of these constant messages about cutting payroll. But let's just get into it. Losing Bruce Bochy, agreeing mutually that the best manager in the history of baseball, that's not the best fit for us right now, and saying, hey, Bruce Bochy, we don't know what the payroll is going to look like next year. They're still talking about financial flexibility, even after year after year after year. I thought we were done with this financial flexibility. We don't know how much money we're making nonsense. But alas, we apparently are not. And with all those signals, Bruce Bochy, along with the Rangers, decided, yeah, I think it's best that we go ahead and go our separate ways. Or maybe I just join a role in the front office, which might actually be happening, might be more likely than I thought on yesterday's show, because it came out that Buster Posey will be talking to Bruce Bochy, but not about the opening for the San Francisco Giants managerial role, which is incredibly surprising since they already had a 3-time manager of the year in Bob Melvin, who I thought did a pretty good job with very limited resources. But Buster Posey, president of baseball operations of the San Francisco Giants, came out and said, no, I am not going to bring my old skipper to be my new skipper of the baseball team I am now in charge of, as opposed to playing on, which just felt incredibly wild. I'm sure that somebody else will want to offer Bruce Bochy a managerial job. If I were the Atlanta Braves, I would be calling Bruce Bochy right this very second and say, hey, please, dear God, please manage my baseball team, because they are going to know what their financial situation is. They have a much more stable financial situation, apparently, than the Texas Rangers, who just time after time after time keep on saying, oh, we don't know how much money we're going to spend. Even after winning the World Series, the entire talk that offseason was not, let's build a dynasty. Let's go for another one. Let's keep this up. It was, oh, I'm sorry. We're poor. Me poor. Me so sorry. Me poor. No. Stop that. Stop that. I am so sick of hearing about billionaires' financial struggles. But what does it actually look like to cut payroll? I mean, this team was not in the top, 3. They're definitely not anywhere near the Dodgers or the Mets stratosphere of spending. They're not near the Yankees stratosphere of spending. Heck, they're not even near the Phillies stratosphere of spending. But, this is a big market. I've talked about it a million times. Every offseason, it feels like I talk about this. That the Rangers, Texas, Dallas, Texas, specifically the DFW Greater Metroplex, is one of the biggest markets out there. It's not New York. It's not LA. But it's kind of coming up on Chicago as the number 3 biggest TV market, especially when you look at the reach that the Texas Rangers have of where the Rangers Sports Network and Victory Plus is available. It's all of Texas. I believe it's all of Oklahoma. It's pretty big chunks of New Mexico, of Louisiana, of Arkansas as well. That's 5 states right there, 2 full states and parts of 5 in total that have the local network reaching out to them. So that's, Dallas, that's Houston, that's San Antonio, all of them huge markets, Austin as well, all of them massive, massive markets where the Rangers are part of it. I mean, granted, Houston is a little bit more controlled and, run by the Astros, but, Austin's up for grabs. San Antonio up for grabs for sure. Dallas, Fort Worth, huge. Oklahoma City, not quite huge, but, decent sized for sure. And this is a payroll that, is not in that top 5, heck, if the Rangers are anywhere below 10, I think that's just absolutely egregious. But that's where this Rangers payroll needs to be. It needs to be commensurate with the market size, with the contention window. It cannot be just shrunk down minusculely. It just cannot be in that 15 to 20 range. It definitely can't be in the bottom 10 range, which it has been under Ray Davis and his leadership. During the 2020 season, 2021 season, where this team was not competitive, being in the bottom 10, it was just, oh my gosh. That's why the Rangers were able to spend $500 million on a middle infield ahead of that 2022 season, because their payroll was tiny, absolutely tiny. And getting those two guys on the books was just kind of getting it closer to where it should be. And right now, the Rangers, in terms of how you shrink this payroll, well, the payroll is probably going to shrink just by the guys who are walking out the door. There are a lot of guys who are impending free agents who are making a decent chunk of money, starting with Tyler Mahle, John Gray, Merrill Kelly, Patrick Corbin. All of them are now free agents at this point. Chris Martin, Hobie Milner, Sean Armstrong, Danny Coulomb, Phil Maton, all of them also are free agents. And then you look a little bit further down, Dylan Moore, Donovan Solano, Billy McKinney, not exactly, and Rowdy Tellez, not exactly big money guys, but those guys are also coming off the books. And if you just add up all of those salaries, all of the 2025 salaries of those guys who were on this team and are at this point free agents, that's $45 million off the books, give or take. And there are still some other ways for the Rangers to cut payroll even further, which I think will at the very least be explored, if not downright just done. But I think the first two ways, outside of just those guys, I think some of these guys who are walking and being free agents are going to come back. Phil Maton has talked about wanting to come back. Danny Coulomb has talked about wanting to come back. I don't think either of those guys would be too terribly expensive, especially not Coulomb, who's going to be 36 next year and only made, not that much money this year. Same with Phil Maton, didn't make all that much money. The Rangers only paid him, $600,000, but that was also after the trade deadline and just paying that part of his salary. But I think that guys who are in their third year of arbitration, two guys who were integral parts of that 2023 championship, are maybe out the door, if not probably out the door. And that's Jonah Heim, and it's talking about Adolis Garcia. Adolis Garcia was making $10.5 million this year. It didn't count as that. It counted as around, I believe, 9 with the 2-year extension that he signed for his first 2 years of arbitration back after the 2023 World Series championship. But definitely the high point of his leveraging negotiations. But the way arbitration works, you have the first 3 years are pre-arbitration. The last 3 years, the first 6 years of your big league career you're under contract for that same team. But each year you get more money. That's how that works. You do not get lowered salaries in arbitration unless you're Dane Dunning just trying to stay on the roster. That was one of the very, very, very rare instances where someone could take a pay cut in their last year of arbitration or in their second year of arbitration. And so more than $10.5 million for Adolis Garcia, as much as he was at least an okay player this year. Offensively, bad. Defensively, stupendous. And if he wins a Gold Glove this year, that price is even going to go up further from, I think at this point, I mean, he is a multi-time All-Star. He is a Gold Glove winner. He is an ALCS MVP. Those are things you can put on your resume when you're in arbitration to help bolster that case. And same with home runs. Those are also very expensive in arbitration. And Adolis Garcia has hit a lot of those. So I'm imagining he's probably starting at $12 million of what the ask is for. Maybe it goes up to 15, maybe it goes up to 18 or 20. I have no idea where the range of negotiations are going to go for Adolis Garcia, but the Rangers are definitely going to have him on the trade block. I think if they don't trade him, they might end up just, designating him for assignment. And Jonah Heim's making $4.5 million this year. He's going to ask for more next year because that's how this works. I would imagine it wouldn't be that much more because he didn't have that great of a season. But I guarantee you in the arbitration case, he's going to be able to point to the Rangers pitching staff being the best in baseball in ERA and say, hey, I was a primary catcher for that. They don't do that without me. All I do to help guide this staff, call games, block pitches, frame pitches, all of that good stuff. He is not going to be going down from $4.5 million. So a trade or a DFA of Jonah Heim, I think, is also possibly on the table. And those are some of the ways the Rangers could cut payroll. But the payroll is going to go up because, like I said, there are more than just those guys that are dealing with arbitration. The Rangers have 4 different players who are starting arbitration this year. And so their salaries are going up from minuscule to maybe as much as in the several $million range. We'll talk about that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you won't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. We've also got all kinds of different odds on the MLB postseason. The Los Angeles Dodgers, after advancing to the NLDS, are now the favorites to win the whole dang thing after pulverizing those Cincinnati Reds at plus 420. The Philadelphia Phillies, next favorite at plus 500. Ironic that the 2 teams with the 2 best odds, one of them is going to be out before they reach the NLCS. There's all kinds of different ways to get in on the action. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. The show is also brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and then you get in the game. I love how quick it is. You can make your lineup in under a minute. My favorite part, PrizePicks has just added stacks. So if I want to ride with a player, I can select their pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns all in one lineup. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, we'll be back and talking about this postseason, some Rangers-centric rooting interests after all of these 3 different win or go home games on Thursday. What a fun day of Major League postseason action to watch with absolutely no stakes. Would it be more fun to watch with the Texas Rangers being a part of that? Maybe. Or maybe we can just sit here and enjoy it as neutral fans without having to raise our blood pressure and cholesterol and all of that nonsense. But the Rangers have 4 different players this year starting arbitration. 4 not insignificant players. These are not just back into the roster, 26-man roster kind of guys, although one of them might end up being that. But it is Josh Smith, who is starting arbitration this year. It is Jake Berger, who is the Rangers' starting first baseman. It is Ezekiel Duran, who is a curious case, and I genuinely have no idea about what Ezekiel Duran is going to make. And then Josh Young, who is also, I think all of these guys, well, I think the Joshes both have a pretty wide and varied range for what kind of an arbitration year one amount they can get. I went in and I looked at all the arbitration cases for arbitration 1, the first year of arbitration players for third baseman for the last few years. And there's a pretty wide range. I don't think any of these guys are going to get more than $5 million. I think that would be the absolute maximum. But when you're in arbitration, a lot of this is not just the value of the player, not just how we talk about players. You basically have to make your case with your agent. It is such a weird system. If you don't know how arbitration works, basically if you're the player, you and your agent argue against your team of why you should make this much money. And a lot of the way that they do that is that they will compare themselves to previous players of how much that player got based on counting stats, based on awards, based on, I don't know if championship rings can be put on the table or are often put on the table in arbitration as, ways to bolster your stock. But if that's the case, then, 3 of these 4 guys can say, hey, I helped this team win a championship. If you're Josh Young, you say, hey, I was the starting third baseman on a championship team. Josh Young has the all-star feather in his cap to say, hey, I have been an all-star at the big league level. I finished top 4 in rookie of the year voting as a rookie. I started every game of that postseason and I crushed it, and we won a ring, and I was a huge part of that. Also, I didn't just make the all-star team. I started the all-star team as a rookie. That is a hefty thing to put down there in the negotiating chips. Now, the Rangers will argue back with, hey, you've missed a lot of time and you have not been that good since 2023. And it is just such a weird dynamic for, the GM and the team who have spent all these years, building up the confidence of saying how great these players are in the offseason to have to go, actually, this is why you suck. Now, Josh Smith is going to have an interesting case. A lot of the things that, make that case is home runs, is, being able to post. I think WAR has been added as kind of a negotiating block of, hey, this is how much value I have, and comparing themselves to other players. But for Josh Young, I think the bare minimum of what he is going to ask for and or get is $2.2-ish million. That's about the minimum. $4.5 million, I think, is the maximum of what he will be asking for. Maybe he'll ask for more, because that's about what Alec Boehm of the Phillies, who's a third baseman, who had been a guy who, well, Alec Boehm had been much more durable as a big leaguer than Josh Young. He had a lot fewer home runs per season or per game than Josh Young had. He doesn't have a rookie of the year under his belt. He finished second in rookie of the year voting in 2020. He didn't make his first all-star team until arbitration year 2. That was 2024. But he got around $4 million, $4.5 million for his first year of arbitration. And I think that's about what Josh is going to be asking for. Young, that is. And I think it's going to be a similar range for Josh Smith. He has a curious case. You look at his baseball reference WAR, and he has been a very valuable player for the Rangers the last 2 years. I mean, playing a bunch of different positions, which makes it difficult to, pin him down of like, okay, where is this guy? Where does this guy line up? And Josh Smith also has the feather in his cap of saying, hey, I was a member of that World Series team. I'm a big reason why they made it there, or maybe just a reason why they made it there. And I don't think they win the championship without me. He also has a silver slugger to put on his resume and slam that down the table, say, hey, I was the utility player silver slugger in 2024. He has an argument to say, I was the Rangers' best hitter overall in 2024. And they don't come close to, being buyers at the deadline or even having any semblance of hope offensively without me in 2024. And also in the first half of 2025, I was also great. Don't look at those second half numbers. But he wasn't an all-star in either of these seasons, even though I think he very much could have been. Maybe even definitely should have been in 2024. Maybe not so in 2025. But he's going to be a curious case as to how much he makes. I'm thinking it's somewhere between $2 to $4 million. I don't think he has the high side because home runs really are such a valuable negotiation. Home runs and saves, I think, are the two biggest boosters of how much you can get in arbitration. Those two counting stats alone are just very, very important. And every single award you can slap down on the table is very helpful. With Ezekiel Duran, I think it's somewhere in the, he might make less than $1 million this year. Usually that's pretty rare because the minimum salary for major leaguers is about $750, $775K, depending on the player in the specific situation. That's about what Zeke was making this year. So, I mean, we've seen ARB1 players make as little as, $800,000, $900,000. I think that's on the table because he's been a valuable player, but he's going to be pointing at 2023. He's like, don't look at 2024. Don't look at that much. Look at my ERA in 2025. Maybe he'll point that out and say, hey, I had a 0 ERA. I deserve to make some good pitcher money in 2026. But I think it's somewhere between, 800,000, say $1 million to $2 million. I think $2 million is a lot. It's more than he's going to get. He might ask for $2 million. The Rangers are probably going to counter and say like $800K. Maybe he'll work the Rangers up to $1 million, but I think it's probably around $1 to $2 million, no more than $2 million. I don't think there's any scenario where that happens, even with what he did in 2023. That's been a couple years now. And once we start 2026, that'll be 3 years past. And then there's Jake Berger, who does hit a lot of home runs, but also missed quite a bit of time this year and was straight up pretty bad for a large portion of this year. His OPS plus finished just below league average at 99, where 100 is league average. He hit just 236 this year with a 687 OPS. Did have 16 bombs in 103 games and a positive 0.8 baseball reference WAR. And he had a lot of home runs in seasons before that. And what will hurt him is that he is just a first baseman now. If he was playing third base and hitting all those home runs, maybe he'd be closer to the Josh Young range of, $2 to $4 million, $5 million. I mean, right now he's got 88 home runs in his big league career. This was his 5th season. And yes, he's just now making it to arbitration because he only played in 15 games in 2021 and 51 in 2022. So he didn't really get the full year of service time until 2023. So he has done his first 3 years. And now, even though he's heading into his age 30 season, he is just now arbitration eligible. And the Rangers will have him under contract for 3 years. Will he make it all those 3 years? If he gets expensive in arbitration, I don't think so. So this is important for how long Jake Berger is going to stick around. But I think he's probably going to get in the $1 to $2 million range. He could vary more than that. But I went and looked at what Nathaniel Lowe had made in his first year of arbitration with the Rangers. He had kind of similar stats. Lowe had a lot fewer home runs than Berger has. But Lowe was also posting a whole lot more. He was playing every single day. And the most games that Berger's played in a season was 141. That was back in 2023. Played under 140 at 137 in 2024. And this year, just 103 games. Now, he could have played a few more had he not been sent to the minors, but he didn't. And he had a lot of injuries this year. So at minimum, that's adding $6 million to this payroll. And that's not even including what Jonah Heim or there are some pitchers who are arbitration eligible who might be getting raises next year. And it's a maximum of $12.5 million. So looking at with what comes off the books with what is coming on the books, that is around a net loss of $32 million, $32.5 million at the most. So that's kind of what this payroll is going to look like as a whole of what this team is looking at in terms of what even the specifics are of, hey, Bruce Bochy, you're out the door because we don't know what these payroll numbers are going to look like, and we're definitely going to cut payroll. So let's look at the big picture. What does that even mean? What do all of these numbers even mean for this Texas Rangers squad in 2026 and beyond? We'll talk about that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chances to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, it's easy, and it's backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price that you pay. It's so much faster and cheaper and less stressful than any way that I bought tickets. I bought tickets to baseball games a couple of times this season, going out to a Fresco Rough Riders game, got some great deals on tickets, got a great view, and it was just so cheap, so easy through Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Shout out to everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. I'll be back on Monday and talking about 5 things that went right for the Texas Rangers in 2025, because even though this season was a hot mess express, there were some things that went right. I've already got all of next week's episodes planned out. I am going to be out of town recording those over the next 3-4 days. So hopefully no news breaks. I'm going to be out of town in Georgia at a wedding from next Tuesday through next Saturday. So I'm really hoping no big Rangers news breaks between now and then, or between, when I record these episodes. And then I think I should be fine, at least for this week. But looking at this bigger picture, what does this mean for the Texas Rangers? Well, losing Bruce Bochy is not a great sign. Just deciding that, hey, we're going to go in a different direction. Bruce Bochy also probably does want to go in a different direction than managing the Texas Rangers in 2025. And it's not because he doesn't want to manage anymore. It's not because he's done. It's not because this team killed his love of baseball, which, if it did, I would not fault him. For the last 2 years, with such a talented team, underachieving in such spectacular fashion, I wouldn't blame him if he was like, I'm kind of done with this. I've kind of done it. I've got my 4 rings. I won 3 rings in 5 years. That is an incredible accomplishment with some of the most rinky-dink teams to win World Series. But he did it. He was a master manager. He took some time off during COVID and said, hey, I think I'm done with this. I think I'm ready to step away. Got the itch for it. Chris Young called him up before 2023 and said, hey, you want to come back and run it back for 3 years? And he said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then in his first year back, takes a team that had not had a winning season since 2016, had never won a championship, takes them to the promised land in year 1, despite all those ups and downs, despite losing his ace and the best pitcher in the entire game a month into the season, and he wins it all his first year. And then 2 years later, he's gone. I mean, there are so many managers that have won World Series that are now gone from that team. I thought, wow, it's crazy that, outside of Dave Roberts, the last 3 years, the managers that have managed those World Series winning teams are now gone. And I went back and looked, and there's a whole lot more than just the last 3 years. I mean, Bruce Bochy in 2023, he is no longer managing the Texas Rangers. Dusty Baker in 2022, the Rangers forced him into retirement after beating him in the ALCS in 2023. He is no longer with the Houston Astros. In 2021, that manager there no longer with the team. I am forgetting exactly who it is off the top of my head. Let's see. Who is this? Braves. Yeah, Brian Snitker. Brian Snitker, no longer with the Atlanta Braves. Another series in the postseason that the Houston Astros lost. He is no longer with the Atlanta Braves. In 2020, Dave Roberts is still there with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Same for 2024. It's still the same guy. 2019, Davey Martinez with the Washington Nationals. He is no longer there. Alex Cora is there from 2018, the Boston Red Sox, but 2017 and those cheating Houston Astros, AJ Hinch is still managing, but not with the Houston Astros because of the aforementioned scandal. So it's not that uncommon. Then you look back to 2016, and that was the Cubs, and they no longer have their same manager at the helm. He is retired for 3-4 years and managed somewhere else. Not too long after that 2016 World Series title, but it seems like manager is the position that there is the most turnover in. Heck, it looks like even in NBA circles, there's a lot of championship coaches that just straight up turn over. I don't know if it's as much in the NFL. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but this is a lot of turnover of the guy at the helm. So maybe it's not as big of a deal. The Rangers are going to be without the manager who took them to the promised land. Maybe the manager job is overrated, or is it underrated? I truly can't tell. It has been a little difficult to stretch this into 3 episodes worth of news about managers because managers' roles are both incredibly impactful and also sometimes not that impactful. I mean, Dave Roberts is a fine manager, but you give him this roster, and I think you or I could manage the Dodgers to at least the postseason. At least the postseason, even with all the injuries that they sustained. I think pretty much anybody could take that roster to the postseason. It is not that difficult when you have that much amount of talent. And then there's guys like Skip Schumacher. You go back and look, I talked about him on Tuesday's show about how incredible a job he did at managing the 2023 Marlins. I mean, they were, a 700 team. They had a 70% win percentage in 1-run games. It was the best 1-run win season in, I think, MLB history. They had a bazillion comeback wins. They had basically no offense. They had inconsistent starting pitching, and they had inconsistent bullpen, and they still snuck into the postseason and won 84 games with a team that at the beginning of the season, everybody thought was going to be the worst team in all of baseball. They thought they were going to be the worst 100 plus loss, maybe 110 loss season. That's how people were talking about the 2023 Marlins before they actually got down to business in that season. It was just, you can't pin down exactly how much a manager impacts a team. It is just impossible to tell. It's sometimes it's even impossible to tell in hindsight. Like, how much of a role did Bruce Bochy have in that 2023 World Series championship? I think a lot. I think his steady presence with the incredible highs and lows, especially in the postseason. I think Bruce Bochy's managerial impact is felt at the most in the postseason. And I think it was felt the most actually in the day before the postseason. I think that is where Bruce Bochy had his biggest impact on the Texas Rangers franchise. I think it was that flight from Seattle, the absolute lows of losing the division title on the last day of the season, having to travel all the way from Seattle to Tampa Bay, have one day off, and then end up starting the longest undefeated postseason streak on the road in the history of Major League Baseball. 11-0 on the road, sweeping a 99 win Rays team, sweeping a 102 win Orioles team immediately after, winning every single game on the road in the postseason, including 4 of 4 in Houston, all after being, so incredibly dejected after game 162. I think that's where Bruce Bochy had his biggest impact. Now, could he have had a bigger impact elsewhere? Maybe. Was it maybe the vibes of Austin Hedges or of this team being just so filled with veterans that are like, all right, postseason time to get down to business? Nate Eovaldi dominating, Jordan Montgomery at the peak of his power, Corey Seager being an absolute monster in the postseason. Same with Adolis Garcia going monster mode in that postseason. Mitch Garver going crazy. Evan Carter going crazy. That whole lineup just going crazy up and down that lineup. Maybe that was the case, but it's just so hard to pinpoint specifically how big of an impact the manager has. But the optics of this are not great. No matter what it is, the optics are not great. Losing the greatest manager in franchise history, the only one to take you to the promised land, and the only one to win 4 championships this millennia. It is not the best look, especially combining it with we so sorry, we poor. It is not a great look. It is still possible for this team to compete, and this team should compete. They should not be worried about payroll. That's what pisses me off the most. You have 2 aces at the top of their game in Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi. They're not going to be here forever. Corey Seager is not going to be in his prime forever. And when you have those 3 people on your baseball team, you owe it to them to pour whatever resources you can into winning and not make the focus of every single offseason. I'm so sorry. We poor. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.